Hello everyone and welcome to the 40 Squads 12 months and their journey to KMM Maturity Level 2 webinar. We are especially thrilled to have with us Marco Mendes, who will be sharing his experience on transforming the company's maturity level. Before we begin, I would like to inform you that due to technical issues, we experienced a brief delay in commencing the recording process. As a result, the first few minutes of the recording may be missing. We apologize for any inconvenience this may cause. We are diving into a fascinating case study featuring a leading retail company in the Brazilian market. This company boasts a large IT structure with over 250 professionals and has been on an agile journey for the past decade, from 2012 to 2022. During this period, they have implemented various agile methodologies, including the Spotify models, Scrum, product management practices, and ITIL. Operating in a highly complex IT environment with significant inter-team dependencies and numerous third-party suppliers, this company faced considerable challenges that require resilience and innovation to overcome. Marco encountered a multitude of challenges in his role within the transformation initiative. Previous experiences has left the Agile initiative subjected to significant criticism. Missed market opportunities only increased the pressure, emphasizing of the urgent need for change and adaptation. Additionally, senior managers demanded for more projects and tighter deadlines, strained resources. They were increasing the workload, particularly for the IT department, which was under stress to enhance productivity and reduce lead times. Practical obstacles also undermined the effectiveness of agile methodologies, further complicating the transformation process. On top of that, Marco was called to meet directly with team members.
That's a specific scenario that I can hear in any place that I go. So after some conversations with the tribe leader, I got formally involved in an assessment in order to help these 5 team leaders, the squad leaders, to understand their environment in more details. And so they were using this agile platform called Azure DevOps, and they were adopting some Scrum cadence, and they did all the cadence. They had the Scrum Master and the Product Owner role, and they were using on average, they were using the concepts of the Azure DevOps. And we did a kind of static assessment. It was very useful for collecting the source of the satisfaction and try to understand the demand and capacity. At the same time, we start to face some sociological problems because, as I told you, we had many third-party suppliers in this company, and 2 Scrum Masters, they put a lot of resistance because they thought that I was there to expose them to the senior management and were defending their jobs. Who are you and what are you doing here? I won't show you any data because maybe they feel afraid of me because maybe I would expose them. And after some conversations, interactions, I was starting to get their trust. And finally, I got to collect some metrics. And what I could observe in this is very common, is that they were oblivious. The senior managers, the Scrum Masters, and also the product owners. And the managers, they were oblivious to flow. And the problem is that they were complaining about the developers, complaining about the EQA people, and they were asking for the EQA people, go faster, like asking for a Uber guy here in this photo to go faster. But the problem was not in the development team. The problem was not in the QA team. The problem was beyond. The problem was in the system. And I was not telling about Kanban yet, because they have a strong identity. But at the same time, I I could show to them that the Agile initiative was fragile, which I call the fragile Agile. And and each month, we could observe, we could measure, in fact, that demand exceed capacity. It was very worrying because the buffers and the backlog grew month by month. The pressure was terrible. And as a consequence, they had a lot of context switching. And between 60 and 80% of the lead times were spent only in the buffers and the wait states. They didn't have advanced instrumentation, but they had a solid board regarding transparency of the work. So it was very handful to collect these data and to show these data to them. At the same time, they didn't have a lot of collaboration between teams. The most of the work was based on individuals. So when the individual got blocked, the work would stay there for days because the worker went someone to do something else, and the original work just stay there. So as you can probably imagine, the lead times were huge, and the variability of these lead times also very large. On average, when we use the KMM scale, they were transitioning to maturity level 1. They were trying to establish a team, but they lack collaboration, and there were very few acts of leadership. And I start to gain the trust of these squad leaders, create a communication using the famous Kanban motto, stop starting, starting finish. And we put this model inside the tool, and it was a kind of a reminder, a daily reminder for them. And they start to like the flow lens. I was not using Kanban yet. Kanban was under their radar at this moment because here in Brazil, I believe, and every place in the world, most of the agile community thinks that Kanban is a kind of alternative to Scrum. And again, these guys had a very strong Scrum identity. So I could not attack this identity to Scrum. So Kanban was here just to help you Scrum Masters to have a better understanding of your work and to make your work perform better. And I was very careful about these sociology aspects and this sociological first approach because it was a very political company with loyal third parties defending their jobs and defending the position of these third-party suppliers. And as we start to show that the problem was not with them, the squad leaders, or not with the developers, but in the system, I got their trust in order to advance. And so after 1 week, we could finally introduce Kanban. But I did not put Kanban as a word. I put Kanban as a kind of energizer, as an asteroid, as an enabler of the existing strong capabilities they have. And they like this Kanban view. They like the flow lens. They like the practice that we were using. I was not using with them an extensive and formal Kanban vocabulary, but at the same time, they start to get to know about Kanban as a tool and to help them to make Scrum work better. And it was very good. and this paved the road ahead, and I was invited for a 3-month project where I would help them to make the Scrum work better in their specific context. And so we went for daily interactions with these 5 team leaders, the squad leaders. And it was a very fruitful moment because they got curious, and they had a lot of questions about how to improve the flow of work. What I'm trying to do here is to create this consciousness about flow, because flow is a very powerful cultural value as the people start to see the work as a movement, as a flow, seeing the world as a move instead a picture, instead of a management tool. They start asking questions and how to handle impediments and blockers, and how to use the Scrum cadence in order to improve the flow of work. And I started to use a lot of Kanban concepts, but not so explicit at this moment. I was careful to not create this feeling, especially in the developers, which were, again, very attached to the Scrum terminology, and that I was not trying to substitute Scrum with something else. At the same time, they received very well that we could improve the user storyboard inside the Azure DevOps, that they could collaborate in order to have better results, because, as I told you, they didn't collaborate very well when I started my journey in this company. And to manage the flow of work, to view the blockers and to attack the blockers. And after a while, we started to write some policies. They have some agreements, but they were not written. And of course, they were very fragile in that specific environment. And also, we started to elevate the retrospectives. And as you can see here, I codified the general practice of Kanban, but in a different terminology, in a different vocabulary. For example, I was trying to reduce the WIP, but trying to limit the WIP by limited WIP was too hard for them. It wouldn't work. So I started to promote work collaboration. And as a consequence of work collaboration, we start to limit WIP. And also we start to use the retrospective to create this consciousness about the demand and capacity, the feedback cycles helping to limit WIP as well. So it was a kind of indirect path. Back in the time, you can see this indirect path, which you can learn more about in this fantastic book, The Obliquity. And paraphrasing a famous phrase from Alexei Zaglov, do not try to limit WIP by limiting WIP. We promote collaboration. We promote it by feedback cycles. And also, we do not attack the Scrum Master identity. And we start to embrace the flow cultural value. And after these 3 months, we got some results. At that moment, process results. The general Kanban practice were adopted, helping the Scrum to flow better. We didn't change any of the main aspects of the Scrum framework, except some aspects regarding the planning poker, which was abandoned because they started to use forecasting techniques, not fancy stuff, just watching the amount of stories they had delivery for a specific number of sprints using the commonplace velocity widget from Azure DevOps, which turned to be a very powerful widget. We had so many good conversations discussing the implications about this velocity widget. And it was handy, it was easy to them to, and then they understand that they weren't planning too much. They couldn't afford to deliver the promise they made, and they start to create more realistic promise. And also we got more effective Scrum cadence, and we improved collaboration using some agile techniques and also some DevOps techniques that helped us as well, kind of Git pull requests, peer reviews, and things from the DevOps community that came hand in hand in helping Kanban, also Scrum here, and to improve collaboration. And the Scrum Masters were more confident, and we could observe that we achieved maturity level 1. It's not a tough journey after all. And the main thing was that tribe leader got confident and went to show to the CIO of the company the results. And this was really an inflection point in my work, because at that time I thought that I was there just to help this tribe to a kind of maturity level 1 challenge. But the CIO got so impressed about the results and about the vocabulary, because these guys, they were using a lot of Kanban vocabulary. They were and they are Scrum guys. They believe in Scrum. But right now, they have a much powerful vocabulary. They know how to handle most of the problems that the majority of the Scrum workers in Brazil cannot solve, because the Kanban showed to them how to solve these problems. And so the tribe leader was confident, and the CIO got impressed, and I finally got to know the CIO. And after some interactions, I was called for a new game. I call it the Champions League game, because my problem was not that tribe. It's not a kind of maturity level 1 challenge. It was how to scale the practice, the cultural values, the results across the entire IT department. 6 tribes and 40 squads at that time. But the squads is not a fixed number, it grows. And the problem is that to do this, we have to absorb in our scope handling with very strategic projects which are led by project managers and involve a lot of squads, creating very, very complex interactions. So dependency management techniques, as you show you, was very handy to tackle the problem. But again, at that time of my presentation, we have very complex dependence in that context. And as I started to understand the whole company, almost 300 people, developers, QA, security, infrastructure, operations, a lot of guys. And I had to use a more systematic approach in order to understand the maturity. And we started using heat maps. Heat maps is a very hand tool in order to create these assessments. And at that time, I told them about the KMM, and I told them about the assessment, and we started using heat maps in order to evaluate at first the practices, and then the cultural values and the results, and they got using some interviews and some evaluation of the data stored inside the Azure DevOps and other platforms they had. And the heat maps was very helpful for me in order to understand the overall majority. Of course, that you can sometimes have false positives, but as we start using heat maps and you use a kind of process to clarify the vocabulary for leaders and conduct interviews and seek harder for facts and data, because people love to show that everything is right. But when you see the data shows that things are not so good as the squad leaders tell you. But again, it's good because this is information. When someone knows, someone tell you something that you can prove that's wrong, and that's useful information as well. And you can use it as to start a feedback cycle better in that specific context. But at the same time, it was a hard work, a kind of almost 1 month of work to run all these steps, because we had a lot of interviews, a lot of clarification, and a lot of um, um, work organizing data, compiling the results, and also communicating the findings for the tribe leaders, for the CIO, for the product leaders, for the squad leaders. A lot of work. But at the same time, it was very useful to present the KMM model. And what was notable for them is that we are not worried only about the practices, because some of these guys have some former experience with the KMM model, which were very popular in Brazil in the beginning of the century. But we showed that we were using these heat maps for assessing the business results and cultural values. And that was very powerful. And even most of the guys at that moment, not knowing what was the KMM, but they liked a lot that we could evaluate the outcomes, the culture, and the practice. And as we finished this assessment, I got invited to a new journey to scale this practice for the whole company. Of course, I could not do it alone, and I needed help, and we had help in order to do this. But we set a lot of we set some rules in order to scale our work, and kind of mindset that helped us at that moment was this book from Yves Moriot, and the problem of the interactions, and the problem on how to create effective collaboration inside teams, and to improve cooperation among teams and among tribes. So we use these 6 basic and powerful rules to create a better understanding what the people really do, reinforce the role of integrators. It was very powerful in order to handle the complex dependence among teams inside a tribe and among tribes inside these product journeys, which was a very common practice there. To increase the total quantitative power of these squad leaders, they would have more power in order to solve the blockers, because they had fewer authority when we started work. And increase reciprocity. These things are the shadow of future to show to them, of course, that we should improve. There was a lot of pressure from the business and we should run in order to achieve these results. And of course, to reward those who cooperate. And as we enter in this new game, we built a Kanban code team. There are some guys inside the IT which liked a lot the work, and they joined us and to be not only a squad leader, but they would like to multiply the work, and it was fantastic. It was very good because I alone I could not touch the whole company. I had two business consultants with me from my company, but the three of us could not touch these 40 squads, almost 300 people. So we started using this team, and with a lot of techniques and tools and dynamics in order to scale the concepts and to create effective results. Some examples show here. Weekly talks, and we have a open space where we should discuss a specific theme. It could be a conceptual one, for example, Kanban general practices or upstream Kanban, or could be a specific tool use or like advanced queries on Azure DevOps or advanced widgets or Diplomatica. We use the Diplomatica platform that was very useful in order to have more sophisticated views about the flow of work, especially the work that integrated the work of many different teams to see the aggregate work in a kind of complex workflow. But anyway, we had more than third teams delivery for these guys, and we had a very good audience, and we started to record and create this video library where the people could consume, could comment, and could bring what they thought about and what they could do using this. And also we started to a dedicated mentoring to the squad leaders, because most of the squad leaders didn't know nothing about Kanban or KMM, just regular Scrum. And in some specific contexts, like operations, they even used Scrum at all. So we had to educate them on very basic stuff. What is a dependency? What is a blocker? What is the demand? What is the capacity? They, of course, they are very intelligent people, but this is a new vocabulary. It's like learning English or Portuguese. So it's a new vocabulary. And it was hard work because many of them had these assumptions, preconceptions, and we have a tough time trying to do this. Luckily, I was not alone. So we learn about how to tackle this resistance, sometimes political ones, sometimes ideological ones, sometimes blind ones. But anyway, the campaign coaching sociological partner practice that you can see in the campaign coaching training helped me and the other coaches a lot. We had long discussions about how to handle the resistance. And we start to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. This was very useful because, okay, there are people that don't want to create an experiment to use forecast. They don't want to talk about lead time. They only believe in story points. They don't want to solve dependence when the dependency is outside their perimeter. But okay, it's normal resistance. And I use here a motto The impediment to action advances actions. What stands in the way becomes the way. The Kanban way, written here in a Stoic model. And also we establish a Kanban coach chapter to help the squad leaders to be more empirical and experimental about their work, because they didn't have this culture. And as we had this approval from the CIO to create a safe to fail environment, it was a keystone in my work. Without this CIO support, I believe we wouldn't get and got there. And then we start to assist the squad leaders and how to create experiments to experiment little things. For example, can we create here a kind of dependency management policy between two teams or a team and a tribe? Can you use the velocity widget, a kind of very simple flow metric based on throughput in the retrospective? So we are not aspiring to cure cancer here. What we're doing here is to create this kind of empirical and experimental approach. Okay, squad leader, you have a lot of problems. Okay, no problem. Let's get one specific problem. Let's create an experiment. Let's try. And if we fail, it's okay. We have learned. And if it solves the problem, okay, and that would be great. Maybe we can stick to this practice. Maybe we can communicate this practice for our peers, squad leaders in this tribe or another tribe. And at the beginning, some of them got shy, I don't know. But of course, we have some brave girls and guys which took the lead. And after 2 months, we started to obtain some results. Some examples here, expedite policies in the SAP tribe. And the SAP tribe is a kind of cornerstone for the whole IT. They have a lot of dependence and a lot of false urgencies in the past. So they tried the expedite policies and it worked. It was very good for them in order to protect their commitments made in the beginning of their sprints. Other tribes were confident to start using forecast practices. Another team show a cycle time. They did experiment only inside the cycle time column. But they did this in a beautiful way. They reduced the 8% the development cycle time only in that part. It didn't have a kind of major impact on the whole lead time, but was powerful because the Scrum leaders got amazed in the positive way about these results, and the developers start to believe this Kanban practice because they knew, they saw that they had a lot of waiting time even inside the development cycle time. Another gal show us a 30 lead time reduction. And as the first experiments start to show, more people got confident and we had more results. And I didn't tell one single experiment result. It was all by these guys. These guys were showing all the results, and it was powerful. It was much better than me. I was there like a business consultant, and they were there telling the real story. They started to realize, this guy, a friend of mine, could achieve this result. Okay, I want to do this as well. And so we started to have this kind of flow of experiments about blocker, feedback cycles, cooperation, with limits, classes of dependencies, end-to-end flow. And we could see, and the most important thing is they were not just telling, they bring the data, they brought the data, sorry. And we could see the average WIP reduction and the lead time reduction. And they use different tools, some of them using a specific a worksheet that we prepared for them. Other guys were using Flowmatica, and other guys were using Azure DevOps. None of them just got the data and put in a kind of fancy PowerPoint. And it was very good because we start to achieve peer pressure. And that was, again, an inflection point because many of the squad leaders were in the kind of late majority. And I don't know, I'm here, but I don't want to try this kind of thing in my specific context. But as the results start to being communicated to them, and one of the leaders of the Agile movement there created this kind of Agile news communication. It was kind of in a bulletin board journal, and it was very good to communicate the results. And as the senior managers start to see these results, for example, in a specific team inside a tribe, oh, but what about you? This guy, John, got these results. Mary got that results. And so this peer pressure mechanism was very powerful that late or underperforming squad leaders were prompted to improve the kind of pressure that really worked in this scenario. And so we started to increase the application of Kanban and KM practices across the many squads and some projects inside the company. And as we start to do this, we could create a kind of new vocabulary where we worry about delivering value for our customer and to think about the end-to-end flow, and that the team was a part of a major thing that was a service. In the journey, the service word started to was started to being used as a means to create this mechanic of collaboration inside the team and cooperation among teams and tribes. And we could observe some practices and some cultural values and some results when you see the amount of projects delivered, the amount of stories being committed and delivered in each sprint, and it create a new momentum. And after 12 months of work, we did, in fact, 9 months of work after we had this call to scale the job, we did a new KMM assessment. And for our surprise, most of the squads were transitioning to level 2 maturity level. They had services transitioning to maturity level. And some of them were already consolidated maturity level 2. And of course, we had some squads that were behind at that time that were still on maturity level 1. And in the journey, we got on the average in all the tribes and the most of the teams inside the tribes, process consistency from end to end. Not only process consistent inside the team, because many of them already had this, but they didn't have process consistency from end to end. especially in the large journeys, the projects which involved 4, 5, 6, sometimes 10 different teams in order to deliver major deliverables in this company. And this word, service orientation, uh, um, it now is part of their culture. And we had many different instrumentations of better measure lead times and throughput for the major of the teams and also for some projects. We know that the journey is not ready, of course, and now we are pushing and we are searching to initiate a journey to transition to maturity level 3. And we started some agenda with them, bringing some more advanced techniques about sources of variability. Because many of the teams still have these problems. They present in some context fat tails. Now we are helping them to trim the tail, to go beyond the process consistency, to have, of course, results consistency. To enhance, of course, the empirical analysis and experimentation, to develop a service orientation agenda. Now the product leaders and product managers from the business side are involved with us, and we started to discuss fit for purpose fitness criteria. It's the moment finally, and as I told you, we are expanding the product management agenda. So in short, to the key takeaways from my scenario. Okay, evolutionary improvements take time. You have to be patient, but they are sustainable. It's very important. I firmly believe that if I'm not there anymore, the improvements will stand because there are a lot of people which are practicing this amount of practice by heart. So it is sustainable. It's very important. Of course, you must have a daily discipline. You must collect narratives. You must enforce feedback cycles because many of the squad leaders sometimes they generate feedback, but they don't have the discipline to close the feedback loops. So it was important. Okay, it was important to have a Kanban coach team in order to scale because it's health work. It's too much work for a single man or woman to do. We learned a lot that we cannot attack the Scrum Master identity. Many of them right now, they recognize themselves as Scrum Masters, and it's okay. They are Scrum Masters, which hold the responsibility to leading a team, which is part of service. They are using Kanban and KMM level 2 practice, cultural values, and results. It's fantastic. Of course, using the KMM playbook was critical. We had a lot of discussions on how to instantiate some specific practice or specific narrative or some specific cultural value from the KMM. The KMM playbook is your best friend when you're doing this. And also the sociological practice, the second part of the KMM book, and also were crucial in overcoming resistance because, of course, we had a lot of resistance, and we still do because we're pushing harder and harder and harder. And it's okay, be comfortable being uncomfortable. And for the end, I believe that you as agile coaches, Kanban coaches, change managers should enjoy the journey. For me, it has been a pleasure to be part of this initiative. I got a lot of new relationships and had lots of learning in this process. So I think this is it. And if I have questions, I'll be glad to try to answer you.
Hello, it's me again. Thank you very much, Marco, for presenting. It was very interesting. We have few questions, but just 80 minutes left until the full hour. So I don't know if you maybe I will pick some of them and then pass you rest. If you want, you can answer them privately. Starting with the first one, in the initial phase of gathering data, how heavily you relied on others' insights like Scrum Masters, or did you do it yourself, like you were gathering on your behalf, not relying on others' data?
Yeah, we had this tool which could extract any piece of information from the Azure DevOps. And I didn't trust their opinion because it's a human bias. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Are you good? I'm good. We don't have problems. Oh, don't have problems. The problem is outside. So I got the data, a lot of data, and we analyze a lot of data to show the problems with their data. So they could not um, resist to showing the data. They didn't like the data at first, but I show the data in a nicer way, which not spoke them. But it was very important to dig in the data, extract the data, and to analyze to have the real information.
Okay, thank you very much. Next question. For the weekly talks that you mentioned in the Kanban coach chapter, were those optional or required for participants to
Okay,
attend?
optional, always opt-in. But we did a very good audience. But anyway, it was opt-in, and we delivered the recorded talk for them, and many of them could view later, but opt-in.
Okay, thank you. Um, who was or were the customers of these squads, and how did you involve them, if
Oh,
you did it?
yeah. We had product owners, product leaders, and the managers from the business areas. And we started to involve it from inside to outside. First, the product owners, later, the product leaders, and from some specific context, not all the context at that specific moment, the managers from the business side.
Mhm. Okay. At the second KMM review after a year, was there any common factor that was holding back the 10% of teams still at KMM level 1?
Good question. Good question. Resistance and a fourth tribal culture, a team-centric culture. Um, in some specific squads, they don't want to collaborate with other squads and other tribes, and they don't feel that this is that responsibility at all. They just want to uh, do the Scrum cadence, and they don't mind if they had problems that are beyond their scope. For example, the work here is waiting to be deployed. Oh, it's not my problem. It's the client problem. But we are trying to handle this with the help with the tribe leaders and the CIO, and it's in the process.
Okay. More technical question. How did you update the heat maps, and what was, like, if you can elaborate a little bit more, what was included in them? And was the process of updating the heat maps automated, or did it was manual?
Oh, unfortunately, a lot of manual work. And in the process, we built a tool, tá? But at the beginning of my case, it was a lot of manual tool. And in the recent months, we developed a specific tool. We can now generate a specific site with the heat map. God bless. But at the beginning, it was yuck, a lot of manual work.
Okay. Next question. How much, approximately, of the product was upstream discovery oriented and how much downstream delivery oriented? And if both, do you have examples how the same practice or technique was used differently because it was either upstream or downstream?
Mhm. In the beginning, most of work was in the downstream side, but as we start to scale, we had to bring these upstream practices, and so we start to uh, teach them how to use class of services, how to create a commitment point, how to do a kind of triage discipline, how to eradicate demands which are there for 6 months or 1 year. And we have different maturity scenarios depending on the tribes, because many tribes have more mandatory work and they cannot use a lot of triage discipline there. But at the same time, we had a lot of advance and how to use commit points and classes of services and things like that in order to improve their upstream and also to observe the flow of work in order to create a balance between demand and capacity.
Thank you. How did you identify the services for all the squads in terms of
Oh,
characteristics?
okay. And in this company, there was a very good work from the product leaders community, and they had all these journeys, all these large flows established. The teams did not collaborate using these journeys, but the journeys were there. There are some other contexts which I participate where I should design and help them to create these journeys. But in this specific company, the journeys were there. And so our problem was how to fit the teams inside the journey and how to make them cooperate in order to realize the flow of the value stream. The value stream were already set in this specific company.
Okay, so we run out of time, so the last thing won't be a question, rather an opinion. We have voiced that love the peer pressure concept. So it is something that we can end with. Thank you very much, Marco, for participating and for sharing your experience in this awesome case study. Rest of the question I will pass to you offline. So if you be so kind to address them.
I'll answer all the questions. Thank
All
you
right.
for all the questions that you put here and answer for all your questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, folks. There will be a survey
I
at the
thank
end
you.
of the our webinar, so we will be very grateful if you can share your opinions. Thank you very much, and good rest of your day or night.
Thank you. Bye bye.